Hi, welcome to another episode of Nick Ryder Tips. Today I'm going to talk about how I was able to get Laravel, the PHP framework for web artisans, it says here, installed to an Amazon EC2 instance for the purposes of development. So on Laravel's site, if you do get started and you go through here, it has a whole bunch of stuff that it wants you to install to your local computer to do development. So instead, I wanted to install it to an Amazon instance so I could just develop remotely and destroy it when I was done. And so I got an Amazon EC2 instance launch and I connected VSCode to it. So I'm going to go through how to install Laravel, install MySQL, and connect VSCode to it and test all that it works and that you can have a development environment in the cloud rather than having to install it locally. This assumes already that you know how to launch an Amazon EC2 instance. And so if you don't know how to do that, then you'll probably want to go take some courses on Amazon, I guess. But right now I have an Amazon Ubuntu image launched, and it's already running here. And we're already connected through SSH. But that's all I've done. So we're going to go through from the moment you launch a new instance all the way to getting Laravel to work. Now, first thing, I'm not going to go through how to launch it, but you do want to make sure that in your security groups for Amazon, you're allowing HTTP, you're allowing, of course, SSH, and you have to allow port 8000 because that's the port that Laravel will run its development server on by default. So, and of course, you want to only allow these from your local IP. And I'm on a VPN, so don't even try to hack me. That's not my real IP. So what you do to get started is over on your Ubuntu image, we're going to run a whole bunch of commands. So first we're going to do the apt update, sudo apt update. And once that's done, we're going to install Apache for the web server. All right, that's done. So you just take the IP address of your instance and put it into Chrome, and it's serving a web page. So that's already working, assuming you got your security group set up correctly. So now we're going to install PHP using this long command. And just go to the description of the video. I'm going to put every command that I'm using in order in the description of the video. Now it's going to take you understanding the context of each one, but at least you can copy and paste what I've used. Okay, so PHP is installed, so now we can test that as well if we want. So we can just launch open a test.php file. So, and then the common thing that people just do to test is go php info, save it. And so now if we go to the IP address and we go php info, oops, that's not right, to go test.php, then it loads the php info. So PHP is installed to our Ubuntu instance now. So now we need to install MySQL. Laravel runs with a whole bunch of different backends for the database. So I happen to use MySQL because it's the one I know best. And you don't even have to install MySQL to the web server. In fact, under a real environment, that'd not be how you do it. You would install MySQL to another server, or you'd install it as a service on Amazon, and then you'd connect your Laravel web server to that one. But again, I'm just showing how to do a development environment. So the easiest thing to do is to just install MySQL right to the instance, and then you've got your web server and your MySQL database running at the same location. So it's sudo apt install mysql-server. Do you want to continue? Yes. All right, so now the web server, PHP, and MySQL are all going to be installed. And so that's everything you need. And if you wanted to connect to the MySQL server, you could do so through like an external third-party app like MySQL Workbench. But we're just going to install phpMyAdmin, the web interface, for managing the database because it's just easy to work with, it's easy to show from a development point of view. So sudo apt install phpMyAdmin will work. Yes. And then you get this kind of GUI here that says, please choose the web server you want to configure. And you have to actually press the space bar so that a check mark shows up here, or like a star under Apache 2, and then say OK. Otherwise, it won't work. So now phpMyAdmin will be installed. Oh, so I don't know what this pop-up means, so I just say yes. It appears to be the default option is yes. Oh, and now we set a password. I also don't know what this does. So I always just go like password or my password or whatever. But I'm sure that that's something important that has not come up yet. And this is why it's very important to have your instance locked down so that only you can connect to it. Otherwise, then again, it's just a development environment again. But all right, so now that that's done, we can go over here and we can go to phpMyAdmin just to prove it works. Right, so now we're connected to the phpMyAdmin instance. However, if you go just root and blank, it doesn't connect. If you go root and the password I just set, it also doesn't work. So that is where I have to go in as a super user on the instance and set the root password correctly. So there's some commands here. So we're going to go MySQL. We're just going to launch into MySQL, and then we're going to switch to the MySQL database, use MySQL. And then I'm going to show you how this looks. So you go select user from MySQL user. This step is optional. This is just to show you what's going on here. So the root user uses this plugin called authsocket. Don't know what that means, but apparently it means that if you set the password, it doesn't work. So first you have to do update user set plugin to MySQL native password where root user equals root. So that works. So now we go select the user again, and now it's using this plugin called MySQL native password. Nice. That's what we want. While we're in here still as the super user, just run the command to reset the password. Alter user root at localhost, identified with the MySQL native password, and you can set the password to whatever you want here. For now, it's, oops. Wow, I really messed up the view over here, huh? I think you can see it. It still just says my password is the password. So hit enter. 0 rows were affected. Well, I guess it still resets the user, and the user doesn't count as a row. So we're just going to test it by exiting. So exit. And then to connect to MySQL as a different user, you'll go mysql-u root-p, and then it will prompt for the password. And the password we set was my password. And it connects. Okay, it doesn't error out. If it errors out, it looks like this. There, that was the wrong password. Access denied for user at root at localhost. So you want to go password, my password. And now we're in as the root user of MySQL. So while we're in here, because we're going to need this anyway, we're going to create a database. So I'm just going to create database nickexample. You would name it probably whatever your app is named. So my app is going to be named nickexample, right? So create database nickexample, enter, 1 row affected, and now we're going to exit out of MySQL. So now we can also test back on phpMyAdmin, root, my password, and we're in. And we can also see, wow, so many pop-ups for saving my password here. It's really annoying. We can actually see the database we just created. So the alternative of doing what we just did, which was logging in as root on the server and creating the database, we could have actually come over and done it in the user interface and just been like new database nickexample, right? And then created it. So now we're we have a user that works in phpMyAdmin. We have the database made, but now we have to actually install Laravel itself, right? PHP is installed, the web server is installed, MySQL is installed, phpMyAdmin is installed. Everything's working as far as the building blocks, but we have to install the app itself. So first we do composer. So we run this command curl or curl Anyone who knows Linux is probably like really making fun of me because I've just been messing with this for a couple days. So that downloads Composer, and then we do these commands, sudo move Composer, and I believe that this moves it to like a general directory where any user can call the command to run Composer. So we run sudo move Composer and then sudo change mode plus X on that folder. I don't know. I mean, I kind of understand what's happening here, but I don't know how to explain it in a way that someone else would know. It's just setting the permissions correctly. All right, so now we're pretty much ready to install Laravel. So you want to first go to the web directory of the server. So the web directory is at var www/html. So it's var folder, HTML folder, or sorry, var folder, VAR, www folder, HTML. So if I am just in home and I list what folders we have, it's nothing. I don't know why it shows nothing, but if we cd/var, then we go to var. And now if we list, we can see that www is here. But really the shortcut is to just go cd/var/www/html. And this gets us to basically the folder where all of the web files are stored. So if we list here, we can see that index and test.php, this is the one we made just to test before. These are the only two files in this folder. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to install the Laravel app, which will create a whole new folder and a ton of new files in here. But before we can do it, we have to set some permissions, because if we just run it, so composer, create project, Laravel, nickexample is the name of the app we're going to make. If we just run it, it just says no permission. So we're going to do a couple things here. So we're going to change the owner, because if we look at the owner of the directory, it's root. So that doesn't work. So we're going to change the owner. And I'm going to make the owner of the folder, of the web folder, www data, and I'm going to make the group Ubuntu. And so this is the command, sudo change owner recursive www data, which is the user that runs as the web service, and then Ubuntu is the user that I'm logged in as. And that is a Amazon default, or at least for this image. It used to be like EC2-user, but now it's Ubuntu. I don't know. So if I go, who am I? Right, it tells me who I am. So we're going to change the owner to www data as the user owner and Ubuntu as the group owner. And that'll do two things. It'll give the web service the ability to run the website, and it will give me, as the Ubuntu user, rights to develop and create. So that didn't work because I'm an idiot, because I just tried to change the permissions of a folder that didn't exist, because nickexample doesn't exist yet. So you want to do change owner of var www html. Okay. Again, these commands will be in the description. And then we want to change the permissions so that www data and Ubuntu both have full rights to this folder. And I did it again with the nickexample. So my commands are messed up. So you just want to do this. And now if we go and we look at the permissions, we can see that www data and Ubuntu have read, write, and execute on the root. So that's good. Now we can run the composer command from before, which creates the nickexample app. No errors, and now it's going to run and install this. Okay, so that's installed, and now if you go ls and you look at what's here, you can see that there's a folder called nickexample. So if you cd to it, change directory, and ls again, you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff installed. So this is the Laravel app. This is how it works. It installs all this stuff that you'll work with and change and configure. So now we're actually ready to launch the server. So what you want to do is before you launch the server, you do have to change directory into the nickexample directory or whatever this app is. So your path will be this, var www html, and then your app name. And then the command to launch the server is php artisan serve -- host equals 0000. And the 0000 says to host it on the IP address, publicly available. Otherwise, I think it just hosts it as localhost, and you can't get to it from the internet. So if you hit enter on this, it'll stay starting the development server. And now what we would do is test it. We would go over to our web browser again, and we'd go :8000 after the IP address, and it should load the Laravel homepage. Wow, this is great. So we're in, we have it running, and this is the default splash screen that appears when you launch a new Laravel application. All right, so now what we wanted, now everything's running, right? But you want to be able to develop on Laravel. Everything's running, and now you're ready to like launch your class and be like, how do I develop in Laravel, right? And you're going to need access to the file structure. This is where we bring in VSCode. So this is Visual Studio Code. It's one of many text editors that you can use to develop with. This is the only one I've tested this with. So there's a plugin that you can download, or an extension, and it's called Remote SSH. Remote SSH, okay? And you'd want to install this. Once you get Remote SSH, you get this panel here that you can add SSH computers to connect to, so that you can browse the file structure. So you just go plus, and you have to use connection string. So SSH, and then the username Ubuntu, again, that's the username that's made with this EC2 instance, at the IP address, port 22, and then -i is identity, and you have to point it to your PEM private key file so that you can connect. So once you have that, you can press enter, and then it'll ask you what file you want to update as far as the SSH config. I don't know what the difference is. I just used the first one, whatever. And now it adds it as a target here. So if you double click it, apparently not double click it, if you right click it and you click connect in current window, then it will now ask you, okay, what is it? Linux Max, or Windows, Linux. And then this is a good sign because it got so far as to know that there's a identity or whatever. So we say continue. It says opening remote, and it's in. Okay, so now once you're in, you go back over to the Explorer and you open the folder, and it automatically points you to the server it's connected to. So again, the path you want to get to is var www html, and then it's going to be nickexample, or your app name. Say okay, say you trust it. In fact, say you trust everything. Why not? And look at that. Now we have the file structure that we saw on the Ubuntu image when we were SSH'd into it. How cool, but now we have an interface that we can browse all these files. So for example, let's go to Resources, Views, Welcome. And so if we look over here, so documentation. Laravel has a wonderful, thorough documentation. So let's just Control F. Wonderful. Okay, there it is. Laravel has a wonderful, thorough documentation. So this is an update. So we're just going to test it, and we save it. And now if you didn't have permissions to write, you would get an error here when you tried to save. And that means your permissions are not set correctly on the web directory. However, there's almost no way that this could have happened because we installed the app using the Ubuntu user. We didn't do a sudo install of the app. We made sure to set the permissions first and then use Composer to install the app. And that ensures that the Ubuntu user has rights. Otherwise, this wouldn't work. So anyway, we go, this is an update, and you refresh here. And look, this is an update. Boom. It's here. So this is working. So So there's really only one more thing you want to do, and that's that you want to migrate the database that Laravel comes with. So Laravel comes with like a base database for MySQL and dumps the tables and the data over. Actually, there's no data, it's really just the tables. And so we want to make sure that that works. So to do that, first of all, you actually have to tell the app how to connect to your database. So you go to env, so it's under the root, and it's .env. And this is all secret stuff. So you scroll down to the MySQL section. Now, if you're using a different database, then, well, this this probably would not be applicable, right? But for using MySQL, you go down to here, and it is still localhost because the MySQL server is hosted on the server that's running the web app. The database is not Laravel. The database is, remember, nickexample. This is where that database comes in that we previously made and looked at. And the username is root, and the password is mypassword, or whatever you happen to set it as. So save this, and now you got to jump back over to the Ubuntu image, Ubuntu setup. And what you have to do is you have to end the server for a moment, so Control-C to end the server. And then you run this command, php-artisan migrate. And that's the command to take all of the settings in this app, as far as the MySQL database goes, and load the tables. And it worked. Migration table completed successfully. So now if we go back to phpMyAdmin, and we look under the nick example, there's a whole bunch of new tables here that were not here before, and that's part of the migration. And as you're developing with Laravel and learning about how this works, you'll learn how to make your own or change what's in here or whatnot. But that's it. And then if you want to launch it again, if the server's closed, it's not going to run. So if I try to refresh this, it will crash out. So you always have to go php artisan serve host 0000. It's back, and that's it. So now you're ready to start developing without having to go through the pain of installing everything to your home computer, so that it's all here, and then when the EC2 instance crashes and deletes itself, you've lost all your work. So there's that. So I suppose just make sure you back up your stuff, especially if you're going to do it this way. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching Nick Ryder tips, and check the description for all of the commands I ran, and check the comment section for people telling me all of the stuff I did wrong, because really, I'm just a noob and I learned this today. All right, bye.